There's someone in your life whose mind works differently than yours. Maybe a kid, a partner, a brother, a coworker you keep almost connecting with. And you've had this moment. You reach for them, you say the thing, you ask the question, and the signal just drops. It doesn't land the way you meant it. And afterward, there's a quiet question you don't say out loud. Is it me? Am I doing this wrong? Or is something wrong with them? Here's what's actually happening and why it matters. It's neither. The problem was never inside you and it was never inside them. It's in the space between. And in the next few minutes, you'll see exactly what that space is made of and the small science-backed things that close most of it. For a long time, the story went like this. Two people can't connect and one of them is autistic or wired differently in some other way. We go looking for the broken part. We always look in the same place, in them. Missed the eye contact, missed the joke, didn't read the room. We call it a deficit, a thing they lack, and the whole weight of the misunderstanding gets set on one person's shoulders. Then in 2012, a researcher named Damian Milton, who is autistic himself, asked a question that flipped the whole thing over. If understanding runs between two people, he said, then why are we only ever measuring one of them? He called it the double empathy problem. The idea is simple, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. When two people are built differently, both of them struggle to read the other. It's not that one mind is broken, it's that two minds are running on different defaults, and neither one comes with a manual for the other. Now, that's a nice idea, but ideas are cheap. So here's the experiment that put it to the test, and it's shaped like a game you already know. Telephone. Whisper down the lane. Researchers lined people up in chains of 8 and passed a story down each one, person to person. 3 kinds of chains. One made entirely of autistic people, one made entirely of non-autistic people, and one that had mixed the two together. Here's the part nobody expected. The all-autistic chain passed the story along just as accurately as the all-non-autistic chain. Same amount of detail survived the trip. When autistic people talked to other autistic people, communication worked beautifully. It was only the mixed chains where the two kinds of minds had to hand off each other and where the story fell apart. The detail leaked out at every step. Sit with that. If autism were simply a communication deficit, the autistic chains should have been the worst. They weren't. The breakdown wasn't in autistic people, it wasn't in non-autistic people, it was in the handoff between them, exactly where Milton said it would be. And this wasn't a one-off, a small first study, then a much larger one with hundreds of people found the same thing again. The gap is real, it's measurable, and it lives in the space between two different minds, not inside either of them. Now, the honest version. The first of these studies was small. The double empathy problem is still a young idea, and it doesn't claim that autistic people face no real difficulties. Some things genuinely are harder. But the pattern keeps showing up when people look for it, and in bigger and bigger groups. And it lines up with something you might already feel in your gut. That connection was never a test one person passes and the other person fails. It's something two people build or don't together. There's a second piece to this, and it's the one that stings a little. Because you might be thinking, okay, but I can tell. Some people just come across as awkward. I feel it right away. You do feel it right away. That's the problem. In another set of studies, people watch 10-second clips of autistic adults and within seconds judge them as more awkward, less likable, someone they'd rather not talk to. The verdict came in almost instantaneously, and more time didn't soften it. But then researchers did something clever. They stripped away the sound and the face and let people judge only the words, the actual content of what the person said. And the bias vanished. When all you had was what they said, autistic and non-autistic people came across exactly the same. Which means the snap judgment was never about them. It was about style, a flicker of difference in tone, in rhythm, in eye contact, that your brain read as off in half a second. Before a single idea had been exchanged. The awkwardness you felt was happening inside the person doing the looking. So if the gap is real, but it isn't anyone's fault, what do you actually do with that? This is where it gets hopeful, because the same research points straight at the answers, and they're smaller than you'd think. The first one is almost embarrassingly simple, knowing. In the first impression studies, the people who knew more about autism judged more warmly, automatically. Not because they tried harder in the moment, because understanding had already quietly rewired the reflex. The second in naming. When a person's difference was simply named, when others knew what was going on, the same first impressions turned more positive, and the two people reported feeling more at ease with each other. The label didn't divide them, it built rapport. It gave the difference a name instead of leaving it as a vague sense of off. And the third is the deepest. Stop grading their style against yours. The mixed change didn't fail because one side was worse. They failed because each side kept expecting the other to speak its language. Connection came easiest when people met in the middle instead of waiting to be met. So think back to that person, the one where the signal kept dropping. All this time you may have been carrying it as a private failure, yours or theirs. You can set that down because it was never sitting inside one of you. It was in the space between. And the beautiful thing about a space between two people is that either one of you can start to cross it. You don't need them to change first. You just need to stop reading the difference as a defect. Learn a little about how their mind works. Let the difference be named out loud, gently, instead of hanging there unspoken. And when their rhythm doesn't match yours, meet them halfway instead of marking them down. That's not lowering a bar. That's how two different minds have always found each other. And here's what you get to keep. Not guilt for all the times the signal dropped, but the quiet relief of knowing it was never one person's fault and the distance between you was always, always crossable. Take the feeling with you.